that you can say.
This is CNN, the world's news network.
You got to watch this. Caught on camera, another controversial arrest, this one in Barstow, California. An 8 months pregnant black woman forced into the ground and handcuffed by police. And it all started in an elementary school parking lot. CNN's Kyung Law has a story.
What are you doing? Ma'am.
How did dropping off children at school suddenly escalate to this?
Okay.
Police body cam video captures the entire incident.
What's going on, ma'am?
The first contact the Barstow police officer has is with this blonde woman who says she called the police to the school.
She gets out of her car, comes over here, punches my window.
No damage to the woman's car. The Barstow police officer then clearly says this.
I don't see right now, I don't see a crime that has been committed. If there was damages, I would give you the opportunity to place her under citizen's arrest if you wanted to. I don't see any crime.
The officer walks over to the other woman, Michelle Cooks, who had just dropped off her second-grade daughter at school. She's upset after the confrontation with the other woman.
She was honking, so I'm like, roll my window and see what she wants. She was like, you cannot park you cannot drive right here. This is a one-lane thing.
The officer then asks for Cook's name.
Okay, what is your name, ma'am?
I'm not giving you my name.
Cooks gets on the phone to call her boyfriend.
Ma'am, I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
He gives her about 20 seconds.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Ma'am, please.
Do not touch me. Do not. I'm pregnant. Do not touch me.
Cooks is 8 months pregnant and never stops screaming.
What are you doing? Stop! Let my arm go!
She is arrested. In your opinion, how did the officers treat you?
Like an animal, like a monster.
This is Michelle Cooks today. Cooks says police charged her with resisting arrest, but a judge dismissed the charges. She gave birth to her daughter, Olive, 2 months after the arrest. She was healthy at birth. Her mother, though, remains traumatized.
You just looked at me and said, oh, she must be this way, and I'm not that way. You make me feel that I'm a way that I'm not. And I work so hard to provide for my family. This is not an issue that I wanted.
Is this a window into the national discourse of police conduct?
I think so. This is how it is every day for some of us in the black community. This is how it is. And the only difference is the technology that records it and the internet that projects it.
Kyung Law, CNN, Los Angeles.
The city of Barstow released this statement. It says, it is apparent that Ms. Cooks actively resisted arrest. The Barstow Police Department continues to be proactive in training its officers to assess and handle interactions with emotionally charged individuals. This incident was in no way racially motivated. So let's talk now to Charlena Michelle Cooks, who was arrested after she dropped off her daughter at school. Also with her is Caree Harper, her attorney. Good evening, ladies. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Charlena, how are you and your baby doing?
We're hanging in there, taking it one day at a time.
Yeah. So what happened? You were dropping your daughter off at school. So tell us what happened that day.
The police attacked me.
But you got into an altercation with another parent in the parking lot, correct?
It was a minor dispute with another teacher in the parking lot.
Yeah. And she said that you were beating on the window. Did that happen?
No.
So you didn't beat on the window. So when the cops arrived, they went over and they spoke to her. Correct?
Yes.
Did they ever ask her her name or for any identification?
No.
No. But they asked you?
For my name.
Yeah. Do you believe that race played a part in how you were treated in comparison to the other woman?
Yes.
Why is that?
His demeanor towards her and myself were just two different two different demeanors.
Yeah.
The approach was different.
The officer thought that you were resisting arrest and refusing to give an ID. Do you think that you should have done anything differently?
You know, I'm just going to say one thing, Mr. Lemon. It's always a common tactic for the police department to put the victim on trial. Actually, she's a survivor. She is a survivor of excessive force. So we're going to take the victim issue out of it. And it's a common tactic to say, hey, what did you do? What could you have done differently? Why didn't you just show ID? Well, there's a thing in the country called the Constitution. She was within her legal rights to ascertain why he was contacting her. She was within her legal rights to stand where she was standing. She was never told that she was under arrest. She was never told that she couldn't walk away. In fact, you hear the officer specifically say, there has been no crime, ma'am. He treated the blonde female with tender love and kindness, and then the energy towards my client was that of a predetermination that she was going to jail. So it's not so much asking the victim, what could you have done not to get thrown to the ground? What could that officer have done? Maybe he could have treated her with just a little bit of care.
Well, Caree, I understand what you're saying, but I disagree with you. And is there anything that you could have done to de-escalate the situation, and the officer could have done the same thing? When I looked at the video, it did seem for a non-incident where he said nothing happened, I don't see any evidence of a crime, that it did escalate very quickly. So that is the essence of my question. Could anybody there have done anything differently? Could she have done anything differently, even in explaining her story? That's it. So I agree, but the law says in California that you don't have to show your identification and you don't have to give your name. So she was within her legal right. So then now what happens? What is the recourse? What do you do now? What do you want?
I do my job and I sue him for violating my client's constitutional rights. That's what I do next. What she does next is to try and repair her life and not be so fearful of police. And we monitor the baby whose life he jeopardized. That's what we do next.
So the charges were dropped. There were no charges were ever brought forward. Did they take you in?
Actually, the charges were brought forward.
Right.
And she had to, a jury was impaneled. And a week before, I believe, closing arguments, the DA miraculously came up with this video. So there's a lot of questions there that we have. Discovery will be ongoing for a period of time, but there are a lot of questions of a lot of people that we intend to ask and we intend to pursue aggressively.
So no one ever told you about this video until you said miraculously in the last moments it came forward?
In the last moments of her criminal phase, they were really pressuring her to take a plea bargain, which is common. And some case law, if you plead to certain things in the penal code, it makes it, some would say it precludes a civil rights lawsuit, but then there's other case law that says, but there are exceptions. So if he could have gotten her penalized or convicted for this 148, California Penal Code Section 148, it would have made her lawsuit very difficult to go forward. And that's what they were trying to make her do. But she stood fast, she stood on the Constitution, and the charges were dismissed. The judge saw through it when the videotape was played in court out of the presence of the jury.
Charlena, does this change how you feel about law enforcement?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Does this change the way you feel, any feelings that you have about law enforcement?
I'm more fearful, very fearful. They're capable of anything now.
Yeah. Charlene and Caree, thank you. It's quite a story. We appreciate you joining us here on CNN. Best of luck to you and your child.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up, what should have happened in that school parking lot and who is at fault? We'll talk about that.
Joseph A. Bank presents the Summer Preview Sale. 70% off all signature suits, sport coats, and blazers. Plus 60% off all short sleeve sport shirts, polos, and shorts. Sale ends Sunday. Joseph A. Bank, the new tradition since 1905.
Did you know that Istanbul is the only city in the world on 2 continents? of something bigger, magical.
We know it. So trust 1-800-PET-MEDS for the exact same medications the vet sells, but for a lot less. Call or order online today.
Let's continue talking about this. The arrest of Charlena Michelle Cooks, forced into the ground and handcuffed by Barstow, California police when she was 8 months pregnant, is sparking outrage tonight. So joining me now to discuss this, Ariva Martin, legal commentator, and then Bill Stanton, former NYPD officer. Ariva, to you first. The officer has a conversation first with the white lady, and then with the black woman. It only asks the black woman for her identity. I mean, what's going on here?
Well, first of all, Don, it's important to note that in the state of California, you don't have to give your name or identity to the police in these situations. And the Barstow police know that. They've been involved in a very similar case where two brothers were asked their identity during a very similar situation where no crime was committed. The case was thrown out. The city settled with those two individuals, and the police acknowledged that in these stop and identify cases, citizens don't have to give their identity. So it's very troubling to me that the police in this case escalated the situation, and Michelle ends up on the ground 8 months pregnant with her hands behind her back and arrested. And the blonde lady, as you identified, wasn't even asked her name, and her story was completely accepted and believed by this police officer. Surely preferential treatment towards her and a bias against Michelle.
Bill, when speaking with the white woman, the officer actually tells her, I don't see a crime that has been committed here. So then why even ask the black woman for her ID?
All right, let me tell you what's disturbing to me, Don, first of all, is labels. White woman, black woman. You know, this, by my metric, by my eyes, as a former South Bronx cop and what I saw here, nothing to do with color. I see a person.
So why would they, Bill, okay, that's a bunch of crap.
Okay.
Because I've been in similar situations where I have called police, and the police go over to the white person and say, what do you want? And the person says, oh, he called police. And they look at me like, like their whole world gets confused. Clearly,
all right, so Don, your experience is indicative of every police interaction across America?
No, it's not indicative, but yes, there is some credence to that, because many times people will walk up to a scene, and depending on how someone looks, they will treat one person differently from the other. Yes. This was an altercation in a parking lot. Two people basically arguing, where the cop walks up and says, I don't see an evidence of a crime. If I don't see an evidence of a crime, why not say, ladies, both of you go to your corners and calm down, and then instead of arresting a pregnant woman and throwing her on the ground? It is absolutely ridiculous. The officer escalated the situation.
Well, Don, that's your opinion, not mine.
Have you seen the videotape?
Yeah, I saw it several times.
Okay.
When I saw, if you let me speak, Don, I saw a person call 911. Obviously, this woman had a reason to call 911. And the only time that race was brought into it was from when the lady Michelle said, this woman's a white woman. Now, you saw that. Now, if the roles were reversed, would we be having the same conversation? If a white woman said, that woman's black.
If they threw a pregnant white woman on the ground, and they said, and the white woman they threw on the ground said, they're treating me differently because of race, I think we might be having a similar conversation.
Well, if she just showed her ID, counselor, I'll ask you, if say she didn't want to show her ID, but she reluctantly did, because she is 8 months pregnant, and she doesn't want any trouble. She doesn't want to do it, but she does it anyway. Then shouldn't she call the lawyer after the fact? Wouldn't this totally have been avoided? See, the pivot point that I saw.
Ariva, hang on.
That's not the law, Bill. You're putting the onus on Michelle. Trained police officers are supposed to know the law and carry out the law. The law doesn't say they get to pick and choose. And let's talk about this race issue. This is so racial that it slaps you upside the head. When the commanding officer gets there, the police officer tells the entire story based on what the white woman said. He never says that Michelle disputed the case and that she said nothing was done on her part. So we have implicit bias against Michelle and in favor of the woman that made the call.
Folks?
I've got 10 seconds. Quickly.
I'm not Lily White. I don't have blonde hair, blue eyes. I've been stopped by police officers out of New York City. When a cop asked me to show my ID,
I have to go. You show it. Listen, I agree that you should comply with a police officer, but if the law is that you don't have to and you're involved in some silly little fight like that, I'm not so sure that I would want to as well. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
Pain from your day can haunt you at night. Don't let it. Advil PM gives you the healing sleep you need, helping you fall asleep and stay asleep so your body can heal as you rest. Advil PM for a healing night's sleep.
You probably know Xerox as the company that's all about printing. But did you know we also support hospitals using electronic health records for more than 30 million patients? Or that our software helps over 20 million smartphone users remotely configure email every month? Or how about processing nearly $5 billion in electronic toll payments a year? In fact, today Xerox is working in surprising ways to help companies simplify the way work gets done and life gets lived. With Xerox, you're ready for real business.
It's all about you. At the heart of our world is you. It's why our commitment to be the best will always be all about you.
Excellence in flight. Korean Air.
My school reunion. I don't know.